The Monado is the primary focus of the original Xenoblade Chronicles, which is well recognized from a narrative perspective. But it is also one of the most complex parts of the gameplay and what several kits revolve around. This video will rank all of the arts from worst to best, give a basic explanation of them and how to use them best, and as a fun little extra, I'll break down the meaning of each symbol on the arts. Also, I will only be covering the arts in the first game and only the ones that are in the gameplay. These will be analyzed from a late to post game perspective, which is really when combat starts opening up to a huge number of different builds. Finally, there will technically be spoilers for arts acquired late game, but there will be no spoilers for the actual plot. With all that out of the way, let's begin! Number 8. Monado Enchant. Incredibly original take, I know. Monado Enchant is almost essential for the early game, and then basically the instant you get 7, it loses any worth. Not necessarily due to 7's overall power, but at that exact moment, you also unlock weapons that can damage Mechon normally, have over 3 party members who can damage Mechon without either enchant or special weapons, albeit with slightly reduced damage, and when topple locking starts getting really busted. The actual use of it is that it lets you damage Mechon, and gives you a slight amount of increased damage. Emphasis on slight though. The kanji it uses directly translate to machine due to it allowing you to damage the mechanical monsters that drive the early plot. Number 7. Monado Eater. This one isn't nearly as pointless as the last one, and I do hold it in a much higher regard due to having an incredibly awesome and unique unlock method. It is obtained through a fairly lengthy side quest chain revolving around the giants and their ancient culture. What it does is create a miniature black hole and absorbs all the enemy buffs while dealing minor damage and bleed to the enemy. This is alright, but most major unique monsters don't use many powerful buffs outside of auras, which it does not absorb. In addition, backslash or even slit edge typically deal more damage, and bleed is not a rare damage debuff to come across. The kanji for the art translates to mean to eat or to consume, especially like in a predatory sense. Number 6. Monado Speed. Speed right out the gate is significantly better than the last two, and admittedly does have some pretty niche areas that it is useful. It raises the physical evasion of its target by a very substantial amount, and lasts a decent amount of time. The issues come from it seeming like it was intentionally left mediocre. It only applies to a single target, so if the enemy switches their aggro suddenly, there's not much about it you can do. It also only applies to physical auto attacks and arts, so if the enemy uses either a talent art or an ether art, it gives no assistance. Another issue is that when using it on characters with high agility or good evasion skills like Shulk or Dunban, they can often end up not getting much of an increase due to the stat eventually hitting a cap. It also almost gets entirely overshadowed by another defensive art later on. Finally, it doesn't even work like the agility stat where it increases your hit rate, it only adds to your evasion. Maybe if they would have made it grant the user haste, increase the movement speed, or increase their accuracy, it could have been a bit better. But as it is, it's just mediocre past the halfway point. The kanji used to represent it means quickly or swiftly. Number 5. Monado Buster. Probably the most iconic Monado art, if mostly because of Smash and how incredible Adam Howden's delivery out of it is. Buster's main strength is being not only the highest damaging Monado art, but one of the strongest arts in the game, period, only rivaled by Ryan's Sword Drive. It has a large frontward AoE and deals double damage against Mechon. It as a whole is just a really strong art. The reason I placed it relatively low is due to it consuming the entire talent gauge, and not having any especially unique abilities compared to the other Monado arts, which have abilities that can effectively trivialize the game. From here on out though, basically all of the arts are pretty good and I use them fairly often. I legitimately moved spots number 5, 4, 3, and 2 several times, so take this and the next few spots with a grain of salt, and know that a lot of it comes down to personal gameplay preference and style. The art symbol is the kanji that means to slash in regards to a living being especially. Number 4. Monado Purge. I have so much personal beef with this art. The art is objectively super useful, being used to seal off enemy auras. This is especially useful when fighting Telethia. But what sucks is that I phrased that wrong. It isn't useful, it's absolutely necessary. But why is that an issue, you might ask? The Mechon do the same thing. Well, the problem comes from the fact that to get rid of their Soul Read aura, you need Purge. And to use Purge, you need your talent gauge. And to use your talent gauge, you need to land auto attacks. This is where the difference comes up. With Mechon, you just have to bonk them enough and eventually charge up the gauge. With Telethia, you can't even hit them. Personally, I just recommend using Melia whenever you encounter one. Her and her skill tree make things so much easier. Anyways, rant aside, this art is really good, as it only costs 3/4 of the talent gauge to use, deals pretty average damage, and has a phenomenal effect. It's just very perturbing the ways it's integrated at times. The kanji used means to destroy, break, or rend, which almost makes less sense than just the English term purge. The Japanese version of the game also calls it Monado Breaker as well, which still doesn't make much sense to me. Also, this is super random, but while recording footage for the video, I realized how immensely far away the Telethia spawn in. This game genuinely is just a technical marvel. No clue how it worked on the Wii. Number 3, Monado Shield. This art actually does a super good job of staying relevant throughout the entire game. It's first unlocked in Chapter 3, I believe, and arguably gets more and more useful the further into the game you get. What it does is block the enemy's talent arts, reducing each hit to only a 1 damage. This is something almost nothing else in the game does, or even replicates. Monado Shield also has the most unique leveling system out of the Monado arts. For most of the Monado arts, when upgraded, either the damage or the effect simply gets a numerical upgrade. With Shield, it needs to be an equal or higher level as the enemy's talent art. If it is, it almost completely mitigates all damage, but if not, it does absolutely nothing. It also only consumes half the talent gauge, applies to the entire party, and is a pretty long-lasting effect. The kanji on it directly translates to just shield, with no differences whatsoever. Number 2, Monado Cyclone. This is the final gameplay Monado art you unlock, and they definitely did a good job of implementing that. The main combo that is pushed throughout the entire game is the Break Topple Daze combo, and Cyclone allows Shulk to have every single art to do that, as he is the best breaker in the game with Air Slash and Stream Edge, and has a mediocre Daze art with Shaker Edge. Topple locking is also the most busted strategy in the game, as the enemy can't do anything to you if they can't even do anything in the first place. Cyclone is also an AoE, fully surrounding Shulk, and does some really good damage, which makes it incredible for grinding levels. It's not nearly as strong in terms of pure strength as Buster, but it has a lot more versatility, and is certainly not weak either. The two possible downsides you could list, as reasons to put it lower, are that it does have a pretty long animation, meaning you can sometimes miss the topple window, and it consumes the entire gauge. The symbol used is, interestingly enough, a Japanese onomatopoeia for boom or crash, mimicking the sound of thunder, which typically happens in a cyclone. Can't wait for Xenoblade Genesis to include Monado Bonk. Number 1, Monado Armor. This thing is just the undisputed champion. Monado Armor is the second art to be unlocked by a quest chain, and is absolutely the best quest reward in all of Xenoblade 1. It reduces all enemy damage, both from physical and ether attacks, up to 75% maxed out. It applies to the entire party, and it lasts for 15 seconds, which is plenty of time to recharge the Monado gauge as long as you have the right gems. This is probably the single best art in the game, and 9 times out of 10 is the one you should just be using. It might sound like I'm glazing it, but it legitimately is just that broken. I will say, the way you unlock it makes literally no sense. I won't cover that here due to spoilers, but it doesn't come from a legitimate lore quest, or even someone who has any sort of remote connection to the Bionis' history or to the Monado. The kanji that is used directly translates to armor. Anyways, that's it for this incredibly random video. Are you an insane person who thinks Monado Enchant is the best art in the game since it lets you raise Dryan's damage? Let me know in the comments. I've always enjoyed watching random rankings like the ones done by Odyssey Central or Shirphyllis Productions, so I hope I can bless the Xeno community with something in a similar vein. With that all said, see you later, partners!